Hey everyone, it is Tune Up Tuesday, and I hope that you are off to a great start for your week. Today I want to talk about fire and motivation and just getting stuff done. So the idea came to me as I saw parallels between what I learned in my military days going through firefighting school, actually. When part of the first thing we did as a part of firefighting school was take a class on fire, right? And it's the components of fire that have evolved over time to be what I think to be a really practical metaphor for connecting the dots between motivation and action and results, that whole world that we all live in. So in that class, we learned that there are basically four components to fire. Four components to fire, right? You have heat, oxygen, fuel, and an uninhibited chain reaction. So, you have to have heat, some heat source. There has to be oxygen present, the ability to sustain and permit fire. Fuel, like the paper or the wood or the flammable liquid. But then there's also this other element called the uninhibited chain reaction. And the short explanation as to help you get clarity on what that is there was a gas called halon that we used to use as a fire extinguishing agent. And the interesting thing about that gas is what it did to put the fire out was just disrupt that chain reaction. It didn't displace the oxygen in the room. There was still oxygen present in the room. There would still be heat present in the room. There would still be fuel. But even with oxygen, fuel, and heat, there would be no fire because there would be the disruption of this uninhibited chain reaction. And I think there's an interesting and practical metaphor we can use in applying this idea to ourselves. So if we were to overlay the components of fire, so let's just call it the components of the fire of motivation actualized, right? Getting something done. We could look at the fuel being your reason why, what fuels you, what drives you. The oxygen being the skill set required to permit action or success to happen. Heat would be your level of motivation, right? Your level of your desire for the given outcome. And then that leaves the one thing required for fire, for a flame, the uninhibited chain reaction. So what is that in our metaphor? Well, I'm going to argue or invite you to consider that the uninhibited chain reaction is you. Specifically, though, your self-image, your self-esteem, your self-view, who you view you to be, and what you believe your place in this action and larger sense the world actually is, your sense of destiny. All of those things are wrapped up into what I'm calling the uninhibited chain reaction. Because I believe that just like in the analogy or the real case of fire, where you can have all the components be present, but if you don't have that uninhibited chain reaction, you have no fire. I believe that we can experience the same thing. We can have a desire for an outcome. We can have the skill set required, right? We can have the reason we want to do it. But the thing that might keep the whole thing from igniting, if you will, is our belief in who we are, right? I'll give you a simplified example. You can be a performance artist, a singer, or an athlete, right? And you can have the skill set, you can have the desire to be great, you can have the moment that shows up, right? That you're at the right place, you're in front of the right producer, or you're on the right game, whatever. But in that moment, if you don't believe it's your destiny to be either the next level of that, like pro or great or professional, it could just be your lack of belief in that is who you are that disrupts you having all those other things being at the right time. They just don't translate into the successful fire, right? So this is one of the reasons why we spend so much time focused on analysis of who we are. And we don't mean that just by definition of title and status and accomplishment or what people call non-accomplishment or failure or struggles or challenges. We really mean that in the sense of who do you believe you to be? Because who you believe you to be is what makes you this uninhibited chain reaction with all those other requirements to create this blaze, this fire of success, if you will. And here is the good news for those that are following this idea or this might be relating to on some levels. Who we believe that we are is not a fixed static thing unless that we want it to be. Our self-image is we've put that together, and it can be modified. It can be completely changed, rebooted, if you will, like an operating system in a computer, or it can be modified, it can be changed, it can be enhanced. It is not static. That means we have control over our self-image when we take it on. It takes work, it takes consistency, and it takes time, but we can do this. But it might be worth doing, right? If we understand this fire metaphor, we don't want to spend all the time in the world making sure we are clear on our reasons why. We have developed the skill set, right? We have a burning reason, a motivation to get things done, but our belief is not coherent with us becoming that person required to be successful. Then all that work and all that effort will be in vain. This is why we need to focus on having a clear understanding of who we are to start. And then from that point, having a clear, dedicated approach to modifying, if necessary, who we believe we are to be the right person required to be that uninhibited, that unrestricted chain reaction, to make all of the efforts in those other areas that we've been working diligently on and focusing on matter. Make them all come together in a fire, if you will. And just like in the real world, sometimes starting the fire is the hardest part. Sometimes you weekend grill masters know this without using lighter fluid and all that stuff. If you just want to use matches and paper and wood, sometimes, that's a challenge. But once that fire started, the chef can do its thing. The cook can do its thing. And often once you start the fire, as long as those other things then stay persistent, the fire can burn indefinitely. As long as there's a fuel source, as long as there continue to be oxygen, a reason, as long as there can continue to be all of those things, it will not only burn indefinitely, but it can grow in intensity on its own. And in some cases, it can become a wildfire. It can just grow even outside of your ability. It can just have a life of its own. But if it's a fire that serves you because it's built on work you've done to put those components in place, and that uninhibited chain reaction being you, your self-identity, your personal chosen destiny, if that is the fourth component of fire, then having a runaway blazing fire would be the greatest thing ever. Flame on.